The house was unusually still as I sat alone with my dog, Max. My mother was supposed to be back by now, but the hours ticked by with no sign of her. The anticipation of her arrival was turning into anxiety as I glanced at the clock repeatedly, noting the increasing delay. I decided to call her, hoping to find out where she was and why she was so late. I dialed her number and waited, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again, but the same result. With each failed attempt, the silence of the house seemed to grow heavier. Max, normally a bundle of energy, lay quietly at my feet, sensing my unease. The quiet was becoming oppressive, and I could feel a creeping sense of dread settling over me. I was jolted from my anxious thoughts by a faint, unfamiliar voice calling my name from outside my bedroom door. It sounded eerily like my mother's, but there was something unsettling about it, almost as if it was distorted by the distance. My heart raced as I stood up to check. The door was still closed, and I assumed my mother had finally arrived. I called out, "Mom, is that you?" But there was no response. The silence that followed was even more unnerving. I felt a chill run down my spine as the faint echoes of the voice lingered in the air, deepening my sense of unease. The voice called my name once more, but this time, it was different. It was deeper, rougher, and unmistakably menacing. The change in tone sent a chill down my spine, and my heart pounded in my chest as the voice grew more sinister with each utterance. I was paralyzed with fear as the voice called out a third time. It was barely recognizable, twisted, and almost inhuman. The fear gripped me tightly, and I knew I had to do something. Desperate, I rushed to the window and yelled out for help, hoping that someone would hear me and come to my aid. In a panic, I leaned out the window and shouted for my neighbor, my voice trembling with fear. I begged him to come over quickly, my desperation evident. Every second felt like an eternity as I waited for him to arrive. When my neighbor finally showed up, he looked around the area, his expression confused. The calmness of the night contrasted starkly with the terror I felt. There was no sign of anyone or anything out of the ordinary. The house and its surroundings were eerily quiet, and the disturbing voice was nowhere to be heard. With the neighbor gone and no explanation for the disturbance, I was left alone again in the silent house. The fear from earlier still gripped me, making it hard to shake the unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong. As I tried to calm myself, it dawned on me that whatever, or whoever, was calling my name was not my mother. The sinister tone of that voice left me haunted, and the uncertainty of what might have been lurking in my home kept me on edge. The silence that followed was just as terrifying as the voice itself, leaving me with an inescapable dread that I couldn't ignore. After months of searching, we finally found the perfect house. It was an old place with character, and though it needed some work, it felt like a fresh start for our family. The backyard was spacious, but there was one thing that immediately bothered my husband: a large, overgrown tree right next to the back door. It seemed out of place, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it was an eyesore. Determined to make the house our own, he insisted we have the tree removed. The workmen showed up one morning, and as they started uprooting it, I remember feeling a mix of excitement and unease. Little did we know, this seemingly harmless act would reveal something far more sinister buried beneath our new home. As the tree was being uprooted, I heard a commotion from the backyard. When I went outside to check, I was met with a scene I could hardly process. The workmen had uncovered a baby's skeleton tangled among the roots. The sight was horrifying, and I could barely comprehend what I was seeing. My husband and I exchanged stunned glances, our minds racing with questions. We had no idea who the previous occupants were, or why something so grim would be buried in our backyard. It was a shocking discovery, and we were left feeling deeply unsettled. Despite our distress, we tried to push the unsettling find to the back of our minds. We needed to focus on settling in and making the house feel like home. A few days after the tree removal and the disturbing discovery, our home was filled with unsettling noises. We began to hear what sounded like tiny footsteps and the faint clatter of baby toys being played with, even though no one was there. The sounds were eerily subtle but unmistakable, as if a child was wandering around, playing with invisible toys. My wife was deeply affected by the noises. Moved by a mix of sympathy and unease, she decided to place a few toys around the house, hoping to offer some comfort to what she believed was the restless spirit of the baby. She thought that maybe, by providing toys, she could soothe the presence and restore some semblance of peace to our new home. Our marriage reached a breaking point one night when we had a fierce, explosive argument. I stormed into the bathroom, slamming the door behind me, and my wife, equally furious, retreated to the bedroom and did the same. The argument was unlike any we'd had before, charged with anger and frustration. After we both cooled down, I decided it was time to apologize and try to mend things. I approached the bedroom, ready to make amends. But when I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. There, clinging to my neck with a grip that felt almost real, was the spirit of the baby we'd uncovered. Its tiny arms were wrapped tightly around me, as if trying to choke me, and its face was twisted into a malevolent grin. The sight was both horrifying and surreal, and I could barely utter a word as I saw the ghostly child's eyes staring at me with a cruel satisfaction. In sheer panic, we fled the house, our hearts racing and fear gripping us tightly. I could barely speak as I told my wife about the ghastly sight I had witnessed. The spirit's cold, unyielding grip and its mocking, twisted grin left me utterly shaken. We stood outside, trembling, as the full weight of what I had seen settled in. The realization hit us hard. Our new home harbored a dark, malevolent presence that we couldn't comprehend. The terror of the baby's spirit, its presence, its grip, its laughter, lingered in our minds, a constant reminder of the horror that lay within those walls. We were haunted not just by the entity, but by the chilling knowledge that we had stumbled upon something far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. It was a lively night at the local festival. My friends and I had been enjoying ourselves, drinking and mingling with people from the neighborhood. The energy of the festival was electric, with music blaring and lights flashing. My buddy, his girlfriend, and I were having a great time, until things took a turn. Around 1 a.m., after a particularly heated argument between the couple, they decided it was best to leave. We were all pretty tipsy, and since the festival was quite a distance from home, we figured walking was our only option. It was late, and as we started our walk, I felt a mix of frustration and weariness. Little did I know, this would be one of the most unsettling nights of my life. As we walked, we passed by the cemetery, which was right next to the local funeral home and the municipal morgue. The moonlight cast eerie shadows across the graves, and the place had an unsettling, quiet atmosphere. My friend mentioned that his dad was working the night shift at the morgue, handling the body of a young man who had died in a violent fight earlier that day. To our surprise, his dad was out front when we approached. He called us over and, with a serious expression, asked if we wanted to take a look at the body to see if we recognized the deceased. The idea was unsettling, but out of curiosity, one of my friends agreed to check it out. We followed his dad inside, and he pulled back the sheet covering the body. My friend took a long look but shook his head, saying he didn't recognize the young man. The encounter was brief and unnerving, but we decided to move on since it was already pushing 3 a.m. As we made our way down the street, trying to shake off the unease from the morgue, something caught our eyes in the distance. It was a tall, shadowy figure, draped in a black cloak, soaring through the air. The creature looked like a giant bat with a wingspan that seemed unnatural. Its silhouette was both mesmerizing and horrifying. We froze in terror as it circled us, its grotesque face becoming visible with each pass. The sight was beyond anything we could have imagined. Its features were twisted, with an expression that seemed to mock our fear. We didn't need to exchange words. We were already sprinting, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We ran to the girlfriend's house, slamming the door behind us and locking it tightly, our hearts pounding as we tried to make sense of what we had just seen. After a tense hour at the girlfriend's house, we finally mustered the courage to continue our walk home. We took a route that led us past an overgrown field, shrouded in darkness. As we approached, an eerie howl pierced the night. accompanied by the unsettling sound of branches snapping under an unseen weight. The streetlights above flickered sporadically, casting ominous shadows around us. One of my friends panicked, his fear driving him to suggest we run away from the field. But another friend, trying to steady himself, insisted we needed to keep moving and pray. He recalled an old family saying about not running from supernatural entities, but rather confronting them with faith. Trembling, we walked slowly, reciting prayers, trying to drown out the chilling noises and the terror that clung to us like a second skin. We kept walking, our prayers merging with the chilling sounds and the oppressive darkness surrounding us. The howls and breaking branches seemed to follow us, an ever-present reminder of the horror we had just witnessed. The night's terror was relentless, and every shadow seemed to harbor a sinister presence. By the time we finally reached our homes, the impact of the night was undeniable. The once skeptical friend, who had always dismissed such things as mere superstition, was now profoundly shaken. He had seen something that defied explanation and left him with an undeniable belief in the supernatural. The haunting experience remained with us, a constant reminder of that terrifying night. The fear we felt and the eerie encounters were etched into our memories, leaving us with a deep-seated respect and fear of the unknown forces that had so profoundly touched our lives.